This episode of Beer with Nat is brought to you by me. Hey everyone, Nat here. I don't normally run ads on the podcast, but this season I've got my own shameless plug. I wrote a book. Available on March 19th in the UK and April 28th in the US, Beer, Taste the Evolution in 50 Styles is a taster's guide through the history of beer. To learn more and pre-order your copy, visit beerwithnat.com/book. Okay, time for the show. Welcome back to Beer with Nat. On every episode, I share a beer and a chat with people who do what they love for a living. They work in the beer industry. Today's guest is Jo Dring, Senior PR Manager at Heineken UK. Jo lets us in on the day-to-day of her role, the best bits of the job, and some of her favorite campaigns that she's run over the years. Then we talk through her decade-long career in beer, from getting her start at Wells & Youngs to working for Carlsberg both in the UK and abroad, and then to her current role at Heineken. She also tells us about her brief stint as a stand-up comedian and how that's helped her in her day job. Finally, Jo tells us how she's seen the industry change over the years and what she enjoys most about being a part of it. Here she is.
Well, Nat, it is the middle of the day.
It is indeed. On a Tuesday.
If it wasn't, I'd have brought with me a beer that means a lot to me, Young's Double Chocolate Stout.
Oh, that's a delicious beer.
Because that was a kind of light bulb moment for me when I worked at Wells & Youngs many years ago.
All right, we'll talk about it.
Okay, and that was a light bulb moment for me in that doing a brewery tour and the head brewer opened this door and in this store cupboard was just shelves of dark chocolate, and he said, "This is all going in Young's Double Chocolate Stout." And I was
actual bars?
Yeah, actual bars of chocolate. I was like, wow, I had no idea this could happen with beer.
Yeah, what a Willy Wonka moment.
It really was. It was wonderful, yeah. So that was almost like the moment when I thought, oh my God, beer is wonderful.
Yeah.
However, it's midday, it's a Tuesday.
Yep.
And
we're in the Heineken
offices, and sometimes you just fancy a beer but don't want the alcohol, so now you can with Heineken 00. So I will open that up for you.
Thank you.
One for me.
All right, let's get in a cheers.
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 Thing I love about 00 is that it reminds you of how important all the other senses are when you're tasting beer. So, the sound, the ritual of pouring, the ice cold of the bottle, all of those things add to the enjoyment of beer, and you almost forget that it's not got alcohol in it. So very often I'll come home from work and you just need that moment of half an hour, chill out, sit down.
Yep.
And and getting a 00 out, it kind of fulfills all those needs that you wanted.
And you still feel great when you stand up afterwards.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. So I'm very pleased that we've brought this out, and we're really pleased at the positivity we've had from it out in the market. So
it is a good point that you said as well about that sensory experience of beer, because it's something I like to talk to people about. When we say tasting a beer, it involves so much more than that. It's what the beer looks like, smells like, tastes like, feels like, and you can add that sound element in.
Absolutely.
Of that initial moment of opening a beer. Oh, I love that noise, or the pouring of the beer.
Yeah, it's the can opening, or the glug 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 into a glass.
Yeah, to just have that moment of thinking about what you're about to enjoy.
Yeah. And I'll always have, thanks to the wonderful Jane Payton, I always have my beer out of a wine glass or a kind of big tumbler.
Yeah, I do that to people too. Yeah, and they're like, what is this doing on the table?
Exactly.
It changes the experience completely.
It does, yes.
Yeah.
Isn't beer great?
So you have been in beer for a long time, and we'll go all the way back to the beginnings in a bit, but we're going to start with your current role now. So you're the Senior PR Manager at Heineken UK, and you've been here since 2014, so 6 years this year. Congratulations. What does a day in the life of the Senior PR Manager look like?
God, 6 years. I mean, it has flown by, and of course, it would be very trite of me to say no day is ever the same.
But I was kind of waiting for that.
But it is!
Because you cover a lot of different brands. You can be proactive and reactive.
I really have.
Let's get into all
that. The best job in the world, I think. And I was thinking, in advance of this, I was thinking that that George W. Bush quote when he goes, "There's the known knowns and the known unknowns and the unknown unknowns." Yeah. That's exactly what it is. So I can be, 50% of my day might be working with our marketing team on their brand plans and making sure that the brand idea can be translated into something that journalists want to write about and that their readers are going to be interested in. Then you can get the call from a a journalist who's inquiring about something that you've got no idea about, and suddenly you've taken on the role of investigator.
Yep.
And you need to find out what has happened, why has it happened, did we know about it, what do we need to do about it, you know.
And kind of go down this
and
really
it's
deep
like,
dive
private
that
investigator.
distracts you from the whole
Yeah,
rest
so
of your day.
you know, those kind of calls always seem to come at 5 p.m. on a Friday, and you're like, oh God. But that's great. And then there's the stuff like the reactive, positive things. Like, I don't know, there's been a moment in culture, for example, and you think, hang on, how could we do something? Take advantage of it. And some great examples that I found are moments of celebration within the country and what impact that has on pubs. So we can very easily look at what's been the uplift on people going into a pub. So Harry and Meghan getting married, that could lead to XX million more pints being drunk, as the pub is the natural place where people want to go at times of national celebration.
Even extending the hours.
Exactly. So that's a great positive story about pubs and beer that we can just take advantage of. Yeah.
And for your focus, so of course Heineken has the pub side and then beer brands and cider brands, so what aspect do you then focus it on?
So really lucky that I get to work across our beers and ciders, some of our corporate messaging and pubs. And of course, beer doesn't sell if it's not in the pub, and neither does cider.
Yeah.
So
they all work together.
They all work together.
Okay, that is nice. You've got the vantage point to then be able to see how they're working together instead of just only working on the beer brands. Then there's that block, and someone else is doing the pub
and
brand.
you know, Heineken's quite unique that we are beer, cider, and pubs. So we've got much more transparency as to what's happening right up the supply chain, right through to that moment when someone orders a pint. So it's fantastic.
And how do you kind of get to know the different consumers then? Are the cider drinkers the same as the beer drinkers, as the craft beer drinkers, or have you had to understand the different personas for what campaigns will work well?
The most important thing is to kind of get in the minds of what's actually going to interest consumers. And you know, we need to remember that we're selling beer, cider, and pubs, and that's, you know, places where, on the whole, the majority, that's a really positive time for people. They're enjoying a beer with their mates, or they're enjoying watching some football in front of the telly with
the whole experience, the whole package. Yeah.
So I think it's really important to be culturally relevant, to make sure that it is actually of interest. And you know, it's not great when you can become so precious about your brand and your campaign that you almost forget, actually, outside of this silo of this, you know, of your messaging, are people interested? So you need to be able to make a story that journalists will want to write about, that people will want to post about, and that we want to put media spend behind it.
And how do you think about that? Is it a different aim, what consumers want, versus how you talk to the trade about it versus how you talk to journalists about it? Or it's ultimately the same idea, you just need to figure out who you're pitching it to?
Yeah, I think it's that the latter one, in that you need to have the intrinsic idea and then make it work for other people. So
if you have an example, I guess we're talking about it quite high up. So if you have an amazing campaign that you've done that you've loved, that you're like, yes, it resonated with consumers for this reason, and the press loved it for this reason.
One that I'm really proud of is we have a partnership with something called the Urban Orchard Project, and their aim is to create orchards in urban areas, because orchards are so great. You know, they're places where you can get free fruit, they're places where people can come together and use it to learn new skills or to get some fresh air. And we wanted to find a way of making this, you know, increase talkability about it, make people aware of it. So how do we do that? So we partnered with Peter Andre. You may think, Peter Andre, how peculiar.
Well, he got to do cider and apples,
but he has an orchard in his
home.
His home. He also presented a show called 30-Minute Makeover, 60-Minute Makeover. So we thought, hang on, let's bring this together and create a makeover for an orchard in a day.
Wow.
Using volunteers, using our colleagues, create a film about it, and then you've got this content that journalists want to write about it, and we can put in other key facts about why orchards are important, and we should know, because we are lucky enough to get our apples from around 8,000 acres of orchards in Herefordshire and the surrounding areas. So we know how important orchards are, so we can get that kind of messaging in. We've also got this talent, and you know, talent does help a story sell. You know, that's what sells newspapers and gets clicks on websites. So
yeah, he'll automatically attract the attention.
And of course,
and then you've got to think, what do we do with it? What are we
and
trying
of course,
to get out?
it's so important to have a real reason why you're using talent and not just kind of as a badging exercise. So we've got Peter, who can authentically talk about
his experience,
and he's, you know, really personable with everyone that took part. So we've got the content which the media love. We've then got the content that we can slice and dice so that we can put media spend behind it and just reach more people through our own channels, which is really important. Social media is great, you know, to get those conversations going. And it helps us to tell our corporate story that we are, amazingly, the biggest cider maker in the world down in Herefordshire. You know, it's fantastic, isn't it? And
it's such a British story as well around cider.
It is. British agriculture is really important. And I don't know if you've ever been to an orchard. It is so beautiful. And to see how the apples are harvested is unreal. You know, it's literally this tractor that comes along, grabs the tree and shakes it. It's called the apple shaker.
And
all the apples just fall
off. And it helps you as well then, because I can tell how passionate you are. It's just that piece that we don't think about. You know, we have the product, so we've got our beer or our cider. But a lot of the times we don't think about where it's come from or who made it. So then you're better able to learn their stories and share them.
Absolutely.
Which does bring that authenticity
funny enough, it's my previous roles in the beer industry. The brewery was right next door to me. So
and here you've got that distance.
So coming to Heineken, and by the way, our London office is fantastic. We're just off Oxford Street. It's absolutely wonderful, but it does mean that we, you know, make the conscious effort to get to our sites. You know, Tadcaster, Manchester, Hereford, Edinburgh, where we've got the Cali. You know, just to remember that what we're making here is beer and cider that people enjoy.
And it's made by people.
And it's made by people.
Those people and tell their stories.
Absolutely. And, you know, you go to Manchester and they are making and brewing 1 million pints of Foster's every day that is tasting and looking exactly the same. You know, that's a huge skill.
1 million pints.
Yeah, that is, you know, that's such a huge skill. And our brewers who work there, that's, you know, it's absolutely wonderful.
Okay, so I can tell that you're really passionate about the stories you can tell from within the brand.
Yeah.
How do you stay on top of what's going on in the beer world to kind of know what's relevant to speak on, either within the industry or, like you said, those consumer sort of waves that you want to ride?
Yeah, I think, I mean, for consumer PR, it's definitely kind of looking beyond the beer world and seeing what's interesting to people. So, for example, Old Moot, our cider that's born in New Zealand. Over the last 4 years, we've made a real conscious decision and put plans in place to make this the most sustainable cider. Why, you may think? Well, it's got the kiwi bird on the bottle. The kiwi bird is endangered in New Zealand, and we thought, well, hang on a second, how can we help this? You know, we're using this bird to
sell a brand,
you know, on our bottle, and
keep
you know,
around.
what are we actually doing about this? So we spent the last 3 years or so working with Kiwis for Kiwi in New Zealand and amplifying that on our bottles, on our packs, creating news stories for it, and also getting, you know, everything else in order, making sure that everything's recyclable, eliminating plastic from the packaging, to make sure that this really is the most sustainable cider. And brilliantly, I'm so proud of this. One of the Kiwi in New Zealand has gone from endangered to vulnerable.
Oh, wow.
And that's, you know, it's mind-blowing.
Yeah.
It's the power of good,
the protection
of brands.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And as a result of that, we've now got a partnership with WWF, because, you know, we wanted to move it out of New Zealand and more globally. So our partnership with WWF, which we've now done for the last year, is pledged to protect 500,000 acres of habitat. But it means we can now look at how we action that on pack and you know, direct to consumers, and that, you know, that's an area that is really important to consumers.
Yeah.
You know, protection of habitat, looking after our planet.
Yeah, you want to buy the products that do good for the planet.
Exactly.
So how can you use your money to make a difference?
Exactly.
And then is that, so for me, I would think that would come from the brand team, you know, to make sure that the packaging is updated to reflect that messaging. But do you then need to get involved to make sure, how do we get that out there beyond?
Yeah, it's a real collaborative thing, because there's so many touch points of that. So if you say, we're going to save 500,000 acres of habitat, we can do that by messaging on pack, in pubs, through PR, through our marketing, like paid for marketing.
Yeah.
So, you know, we all need to work as a team in order for that that
message
one
to get out.
key message to get out there. Yeah.
And what about the industry side of things? So if there's sort of beer news that you maybe need to report on or that you want to get involved with?
So I think for us, we're in a Heineken, we're in a unique position. We're beer, cider and pubs. So we do have that aerial view and everything. And, you know, it's not necessarily for us to get involved with particular debate on things. And I know that, you know, there is debate about investment of international brewers into craft brewers. I mean, my view is that isn't it great that we're in an industry where there is so much passion and people have these opinions? You know, we could all work in the sock industry. You know, no one's going to care about that, are they?
One brand versus another
exactly.
brand.
Oh my God, I can't believe you're wearing those socks. But, you know, it's a real positive that we do work in an industry where people are that passionate.
So, of course, most people in beer probably know then that Heineken has invested in quite a few craft breweries. With Lagunitas in the States, that's fully owned by Heineken, and then there's been investment here in the UK in Brixton and Beavertown. And of course, I know during many of these acquisitions, there can often be very negative press coverage. So I'd love to get your thoughts being on the inside. Personally and professionally, do you feel any of that negativity personally? And then how do you best handle that negativity professionally? You know, if it's coming in, oh, why did Heineken do this? Then what's your best response?
For us, you know, the proof is in the pudding. So, you know, Brixton are now brewing at their brand new brewery. Beavertown will open their new site later this year. And, you know, then it's up to consumers to decide. As I say, proof is in the pudding. And it's really, you see the industry kind of moving up a funnel. So, you know, by this investment, it means that there's space for other brewers to kind of come in and fill that. Now, people will have differing opinions on, you know, what that means. Thankfully, I've not had any personal negativity directed at me. Okay, I mean, I've seen negative and positive, which is great. You know, again, it shows that people have views. And I think it's beer. You know, this is something that we drink when we're with our friends and we get together and enjoy. And beer is the backbone of pubs. You know, let's try and get rid of some of the negativity that is around, and I think it's the minority. Okay, so let's move on to more positive things then. Of all the campaigns that you've run across the years, what has been your favourite? So my absolute favourite campaign is one that started off as a brainstorm about 4 years ago in a room just across the hall with some of my colleagues, and we wanted to do something at Christmas time to encourage people to get together in pubs to help combat loneliness. And we came up with this idea called Brewing Good Cheer, where we would host some lunches in pubs for people who may be suffering from loneliness, can come and meet other people and socialise and have a lovely lunch. And, you know, these are people that perhaps don't get to go to the pub often for whatever reason. And we wanted to, you know, to give something back. Yeah. So that first year we ran 10 lunches. Second year, 20 maybe. So we've just done the last year's one, and there's over 200 lunches across the country for thousands of people. That's amazing. And, you know, it is something that, you know, I've attended these lunches, and just chatting to some of these people who maybe they're carers, so they can't get out often, or they do, you know, suffer from isolation for whatever reason. Of course, we mustn't forget loneliness can affect everybody, anybody, you know, it's no matter how old you are. Exactly. Yeah. And, you know, just that, almost that simple beauty of having some food and a drink in company. Some good chat. It's brilliant. And it's all very well that we do that here, but we need to inspire other people to do that, and we can use PR to do that. So over the years, we've worked with some great talent. And back to my point about when you use talent, it's important that they have a reason for being. So we've worked with Frank Bruno because he suffered from some mental health issues and from loneliness as well. And we've worked with Adam and Ryan Thomas, who were two guys from Coronation Street and Emmerdale, and that, you know, lent for a much more kind of boisterous bit of content, you know, cheeky chappies kind of thing. And then this year we were really lucky to work with Eamon Holmes and Ruth Langsford, and they surprised these guests at this wonderful pub called the Red Lion in Shepperton, and, you know, it's really heartwarming video that we're able to use with media, with press, and then also for through our social channels. But the ultimate message is, maybe you've got a neighbour who doesn't go out much. Invite them down the pub for a cup of tea or half a pint or something. If we can encourage more people to do that, then all for the better.
Yeah, exactly right. We'll connect with each other, keep the pubs alive, these special places. So, that's
exactly
great.
it.
That's such a nice, heartwarming campaign.
I'm very proud of that.
Absolutely. What is your favorite aspect of your job? Because it sounds like you have these many different touch points, so many different brands to cover. What bit do you enjoy the most?
The thing that I've always loved about my job, and I think from day one, is that you can write something one day and you can see it in an actual newspaper the next day, and you're like, God,
you're so powerful. Look
that
at
wasn't for me. I would never even been there.
Yeah.
And that's such a buzz. I have a short attention span anyway, so seeing
so to come up with an idea, create a story,
exactly, and there it is. Next,
see it in the paper. Yeah,
exactly.
So you like the idea of fast moving?
I really,
new to tell.
At the same time, love working on big campaigns where you months of planning, and then you get to the point where it's all announced, and you see the marketing tallying in with the PR. So that's brilliant. But I mean, sometimes I think to myself, what a bizarre job I do have, in that one day I can be at Joey Essex's house doing stuff with Desperados, and I can be the other side of the world with Michaela Strachan, and then I might be with Gennaro Contaldo cooking up Italian food. It's like,
this is crazy.
This is crazy.
Yeah, just hanging out with all these celebs.
Well, that's what it is. I love a celeb.
On behalf of Beer and Cider Brands. That's so
exactly,
fun.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll go all the way back to your uni days and say, did you ever think this was the path that you would be set out on? What did you study at uni? What did you think you would do? And then get into your beer career.
Other than be a pop star, which was really what I wanted to be.
Oh, amazing. Do you have a good singing voice? I haven't heard it. Or karaoke?
I mean,
after a few more Heineken
love
Zeros,
karaoke.
We'll find out.
So I did business management at Aston Uni, which had a placement year opportunity, so you go into industry for a year. And I thought, I'm going to do some marketing. And I got a job at Vauxhall.
Okay.
And I thought it...
The car world.
Exactly, the car world. And it was within the comms team. It's quite a big comms team, so there's public affairs, internal, consumer, PR. And I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. I didn't even realise the concept of PR, public affairs existed. And I worked with this, my boss was an amazing woman called Catherine Bennett, who is now at Airbus. But she was so supportive, and would allow for me to take hold of any opportunity and get experience of all the different elements of comms, from consumer PR through to product PR. And it was such an eye opener, because I'd sit opposite the press officer, and she'd get a call from the producers at Top Gear saying, can we borrow a VX220 this week? I'm like, wow, this is so cool. And the other thing was we had a fleet of press cars, so if they weren't being used, sometimes you could take them for the weekend.
Oh my goodness! So who's that celeb in that fancy car?
Exactly. So I'd drive home from Luton, which is where Vauxhall were, to Bedford, my hometown. In a convertible Astra or something like that. It was really cool. Yeah, it was really exciting.
Okay, but you're not in the car world, so how did you then end up leaving that space?
Loved that, and loved that placement year. So that was third year of uni. Went back to uni, got the degree. Went back to Bedford, my hometown, and got a job as press officer at my local council.
Were you getting any calls asking for cars?
Well, unfortunately not. However, the council, baptism by fire of the press office, because every single decision that the council made, the local press are interrogating it, and quite rightly so. So you're suddenly, having to deal with possible bird flu epidemic, or is there why hasn't this rubbish been collected, or what's going on with the market stalls this week? All of this, random questions that are coming in. And I said earlier about there's the job of being the investigator to try and understand.
Yeah, I was thinking that it started early.
What's happened? Why has it happened? What should we say about it? you know, it was brilliant. But also in that time, I guess I sort of tried to move us from being reactive, but to actually being positive about things we're doing. So, and the first ever PR stunt I did was for, it was something called Pride in Bedford, which was a kind of litter pickup type campaign, really, which doesn't sound that sexy.
But you made it.
Oh yeah, so listen to this. I mean, this is 13 years ago or 14 years ago, and I got a you might not know that. Do you know Keeping Up Appearances? The 90s sitcom with Hyacinth Bouquet in.
I've definitely heard of it.
Okay,
yeah.
So I got a lookalike of her. It sounds so bizarre. I got a lookalike of her to kind of come and you know,
pick up some trash.
Pick up some trash, exactly. And I was amazed because I think we got both local tellies there, both local papers, the radio there, and I thought, this is brilliant, you know. And actually looking back, you talk about cultural insights and what was actually people going to be interested in, and what did journalists want to write about. And I'm not saying I'd do this now, but you know, back then it was a great photo story. It was great for moving pictures and for sound, for radio, and you know, we got some really good coverage from it.
All right, so then how did you go from Bedford Council to beer? Had you always had a love of beer?
Do you know what? I don't really think
it wasn't that.
It never almost crossed my mind, I don't think. I mean, I used to drink beer, and I don't know why it hadn't crossed my mind, because I was a Bedford girl. And Charles Wells had been in Bedford since, testing my memory, I think since 1876. So there's Charlie Wells pubs everywhere.
You can't ignore it.
You can't ignore it. In fact, I think my great uncle used to run one of the pubs in Bedford.
Wow.
And I can remember it so clearly in my mind now, this advert in the Bedson Sunday, the local paper, for a press officer. I thought, oh, I'll have a go at that. And I got it. And you know, this was a time when Wells and Youngs had just done the merger with Youngs. It had Corona under license, Red Stripe under license, Cask beers absolutely flying. So you've got Bombardier, Youngs, Courage beers, and you know, I learnt so much there, and you know, very thankful to all my colleagues there, and still keep in touch with Pete and Paul Wells. You know, changes have happened there, but you know, so exciting to see that their pub company's thriving. They're soon going to be opening Brew Point in Bedford, which is their new microbrewery. That's right, yeah.
I've seen some photos. It looks beautiful.
Yeah, well, I drove past it at Christmas, and it looks absolutely fantastic. You know, a real beacon for Bedford. You know, this is a company that's certainly played a role in my family's lives. You know, I imagine my granddads would have been so proud that I was working at Charlie Wells.
Yeah.
You know, and that kind of, you know, gets a bit of a lump in your throat. And you know, now seeing that next step in their journey, and you know, Brew Point is going to be a beacon for Bedford. It looks fantastic, and I can't wait for it to open.
And then once you got into the business, it was the role that drew you there. How did you discover beer? Did you take the brew tour and learn about it that way? Did you try loads of beers? Was there someone teaching you?
Yeah, I mean, it's
what was that journey of discovery like?
The brewery is right next door to you, so if you want to go and have a look and
smell,
yeah, you know, it smells hops and it smells all the time. Fantastic, yeah, and you'd see the lorries coming in and lorries going out again with the beer. So, you know, really good from that perspective to understand the brewing process. We'd often have taste panels every Thursday at about 10:30.
Oh wow, okay.
Which of course is the optimum time for when you.
It is actually. That's when our senses are
absolutely
at their height. Not just an excuse to get drunk early in the day.
Exactly. And
so it was really just repeat exposure.
I think just absolutely, yeah, just repeat exposure, and suddenly you're learning about, you know, understanding how important beer is to pubs. Like I said, beer is the backbone of pubs. You know, the phrase "fancy a pint" means so much more than just the liquid. It means I want to meet up with you, and I want to have a chat, and I want to go down to our local pub. Yeah. And you know, all of those kind of messages that just sort of have infiltrated my body, I suppose, now for the last 13 years, 12 years, who knows.
You've been here a while.
Yeah, a while.
Beer. And were you doing beer and pubs there as well?
So I mainly worked on the brand side, so worked on Red Stripe, and when Heineken bought Red Stripe, I was absolutely over the moon because
Yeah,
Red Stripe.
you knew it well. Okay,
Red Stripe
cool.
was, the beer I really, cut my teeth on. So to have that back in, in kind of
The portfolio
portfolio now is just wonderful. A lot of work on Bombardier, which was the flagship beer.
There's such different brands as well, so having to wear those two different brand
Absolutely,
hats.
yeah.
How do I talk to this consumer versus that consumer?
Exactly. So
that's quite fun.
I suppose it's a little bit of trying and testing, seeing what works. Getting to know the industry journalists that who are incredibly important and are still great friends now. I think back to those days and people like Robin Black or Melissa Cole. I've known them for over a decade now. It's fantastic.
And then you can see their journeys through the industry as well.
Exactly,
so
yeah.
yes, let's talk about yours. So you were at Wells and Youngs for how many years?
About six years or so, yeah.
And then next was Heineken.
Carlsberg. Next was Carlsberg, yeah.
Carlsberg.
So it was a really difficult decision to leave Wells and Youngs. And I'd say my heart is very much still there. As
that's hometown.
Exactly, hometown.
And it's where you got your start, so you'll always have a love
Exactly, it taught me so much. Gave me my love for beer. And then I got the job at Carlsberg, which you're going from a regional family brewer to suddenly one of the big four, yeah. And again, a similar kind of approach to PR, in that you're thinking, well, what is it that's actually going to make journalists want to write about you? But working on Carlsberg, for example, which has one of the most probably one of the most famous advertising lines in the world.
I like that. Well done.
Thank you. Kudos to them for bringing it back. I think the new campaign's fantastic. So I was in Northampton for about a year or so, and then got a promotion to global. So I lived in Copenhagen.
Oh my word! Wow.
So that was
wow. What was that experience?
Yeah.
Like?
So personally and professionally, mega.
Yeah.
And it's daunting when you think, God, I'm gonna have to move everything to a different city that I'd only ever been to for maybe a meeting or something. Different language, don't know anyone
completely
there.
Different culture, different beer scene.
Absolutely.
Wow, okay.
And I thought, if I don't do, I'll regret it. So I did. So I upped and got everything shipped out to Copenhagen.
Wow. How long were you there?
So I was there for about 18 months or so.
Okay.
And the one thing it really showed was that the UK pub culture is the best in the world. Because when I moved to Copenhagen, I thought, well, where to make friends? Well, I'll just go down the pub. And it's not like the UK. People didn't necessarily want to just have a chat with you. They're quite content with the friends that they've got, and I found that quite hard. And trying to really,
you really
come and be my friend.
You felt like an outsider.
Yeah,
it's not that accepting of a community.
But I did make friends. I wasn't on my own the whole time. But it highlighted to me how lucky we are in this country to have pubs.
Yeah.
Because there really is nowhere else where you can walk in on your own, and if you want to have a pint on your own, fine. If you want to get chatting to someone, people are
welcome to it.
You don't go to the gym and start chatting to people.
or get on the subway.
Exactly.
No, headphones in, to myself.
Can you imagine?
Yeah, but you can make friends down at the pub.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And, we must never forget that. I've got a great local near where I live, the Great Northern Railway Tavern in Hornsey.
Mm-hmm.
It's about 2 minutes walk from my house. So
that's dangerous.
It's very dangerous. But I'll go in there after work and just have a pint on my own and just kind of just watch the world go by, and it's just a really nice environment to be sat in, and you can you watch the people that are in there, and there's groups having dinner or just meeting their mates, or there's families in there, and it's this is the great British pub. It's so unique and wonderful.
Is that part of the reason then why you wanted to come back to the UK?
Yeah, I think personally I wanted to move abroad. I did it.
Yep.
Learned a lot. I was really lucky again. I was working on the Euros when
oh wow,
when Carlsberg sponsored it. Got to go to the finals of that, which is brilliant.
What a cool opportunity.
But I always knew that
you
I
would
wanted to come back. And
yeah.
I think I was looking on LinkedIn and just saw this job available. I thought, aha, this could be
now's
good.
The time.
And I got it. And, you know, it's brilliant to be here at Heineken. And, you know, it's such a good company to work for, and that we have fantastic brands. There's a real focus on enjoyment of life. So a lot of time spent in kind of mental well-being and physical well-being. You know, we do stuff for good through our brands. And the people are absolutely fantastic. You know, I'm really proud to work here.
Oh, that's great. And in terms of the people that you've met throughout your time in the beer world, you were saying, you mentioned Robin and Melissa, who you met at your early days, you know, first getting into beer, and you, of course, are still in touch with them now.
Yeah.
You are probably one of my few guests who've worked in the industry for quite a long time. I'd say most guests are maybe in beer for 5 years or less. So you have been, you know, more than 10 years.
A real old timer.
You're a lifer here.
I'm only 22.
How exactly?
Amazing.
Got your start super young. How have you seen the industry change in that time?
Yeah, it's funny because when I was at Wells and Youngs, I started when I was about 25, maybe. So quite young and fresh, and you know, a bit naive probably as well. I would certainly say that there used to be a point when you'd go to an industry do and you'd see a sea of men's grey balding hair. Now we go to an industry event and you see huge diversity. You know, there's and particularly so many more women in the industry, which is fantastic.
Did you feel like you were one of few women when you first got started, and were you conscious at all getting into beer, saying, "Oh, I'm a woman. Is this a man's world I'm entering?" Or were you just like, "Hey, great opportunity as a press officer.
Yeah,
Doesn't matter who I'm working with."
I think looking back, I probably do think that lack of diversity, but I think at the time. It wasn't.
I feel we're all quite inward focused on our job.
Yeah,
and our work,
and it wasn't so much spoken about in the media either necessarily. I never felt like I was a woman in a man's world or anything like that. But I can definitely see now, looking back, that the industry was lacking women. And again, isn't it great that there are so many?
That started to change.
Yeah, so many women. I mean, even here, you know, in our marketing department. I don't know, maybe 70% are women.
Wow.
It's fantastic.
And have you seen changes to the beers that are available over the course of that time, with you starting in cask and really, you know, focusing on that world? And now we've got the craft beer movement that you've essentially witnessed grow and change. What's that been like being on the inside?
It's funny looking back, because you think, when was the point that cask, because cask was really rising and increasing in popularity. And what was that point when it's just suddenly almost dropped off, in craft beer, keg beer, whatever you want to call it, you know, was the one that, it just suddenly exploded. And I can't quite pinpoint it. Maybe it was because I was in Copenhagen when it happened. I'll blame
it's when you left. That's what happened, Joe.
I was out of the country. What have you done? And but you know, I just think the more people we can get drinking beer, loving beer, enjoying beer, the better for everyone, better for the industry. 90% of the beer we drink in this country is made in this country.
Yeah,
beer is the backbone of UK pub culture. It's Britain's national drink, you know.
Let's get everyone drinking more of it.
Everyone drinks more, everyone benefits.
Yeah, I like that. Okay, so outside of beer, I know one of your main hobbies, you do stand-up comedy.
I did do stand-up comedy. I'm taking a creative break at the moment.
Okay, so how are you expressing yourself as a comedian these days?
So it all started when I noticed that there was a stand-up comedy course for 2 hours on a Wednesday night. Was
this over multiple weeks?
Yeah, over 2 hours. Yeah, that's like 2 hours and I'm done. Bring me the Apollo. And for 7 weeks, I thought, well, that sounds fun.
Okay.
And do you know what? It was absolutely one of the best things I've ever done, because it's not just about this is how you tell a joke. It's, you know, if you can make your mates laugh, maybe down the pub, but how do you make a room full of people laugh? How do you build a joke? How can you make your creative mind work to kind of bring people with you, spar off your own ideas, make connections where you might not see something, and kind of build. And at the end of this course, you had to do a 5-minute set, and did it at the comedy pub next to the comedy club.
The longest 5 minutes of my life.
Exactly. I've played the West End, I think you could effectively say, and it was such a buzz, such an adrenaline rush. I think I was on a high for about 3 days afterwards. Absolutely fantastic experience. And if you can make a room full of slightly tipsy, 100 people laugh, then you can definitely do a presentation at work.
Yeah.
And I loved it. And so I probably did about 20 or 30 gigs in total around London. And I really, really loved it, but it was also exhausting because my job, I spend quite a lot of time in pubs. And then you go into a gig and you've got to spend a lot of time in pubs. And I thought, God, I'm never at home. So I'd definitely do it again. I'd recommend it to anyone to do that course particularly, because it was almost life-changing, actually. And a fantastic experience. And it's something that I would dine out on for many years to come. Because people are always like, oh my God, that's amazing.
Stand-up comedian.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So do you feel there are aspects of it that have kind of woven into your day-to-day life in terms of confidence?
I think so, yeah. Confidence, creativity, getting your message clear, knowing what makes people interested, knowing what makes them laugh. All of those things can then translate back into the day-to-day work. Absolutely, yeah.
That's a great point. Not just about what you want to say or do, but what's your audience going to react to, whoever that audience is.
And that's another big part of my job is always thinking, what's the wider implications of what we're doing?
Yeah.
Or how we're positioning something. Don't be siloed in
together.
everything. Yeah, it does all tie together.
All right, so I think it's a good time for me to ask my last question, which is, what do you enjoy most about being a part of the beer industry?
The thing I love most about our industry is that we're all an incredibly sociable and friendly bunch. And, I can go to events where it's kind of industry events and, you just can't stop talking to people because you've met them that time, you used to work with them here, or, they want to know about this. And, I think we're all kind of working together for the same goal. But ultimately, the thing I love about our industry is that, and I'll say it again, beer is the backbone of British pubs, and there is nowhere on this planet that's as brilliant as the Great British Pub. And if we all, go to the pub a bit more often. And you don't have to have a pint of alcohol. You can have a pint of alcohol-free beer, Heineken 0.0, now available on Blade. It's
not about the drinking.
It's not about the drinking. It's about the socialising, the coming together, the moments of just thinking that you can have if you want to have a drink on your own. They're the places where you can go for your pub quiz, your karaoke, or their charity fundraisers, and it's this hub of communities all across our country, and everyone's local means something to them. And if we look back at soap operas, they're all based around a pub because that's the hub of the community.
Yep.
And we've all got our own little soap opera life, and we've all got our local.
Yeah.
And my plea, and I know that your listeners will hopefully agree with me, the Great British Pub is
where we ought
wonderful.
To be spending our time.
We should all spend more time in the pub.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for your time, Joe, and thanks for banging the drum for the Great British Pub. Anyone else feeling a visit to their local coming on? Come on back next week to hear from Jackie Moody McNamara, business coach and founder of Turn the Key. Chat soon.